I'll speak today based on this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This is 529. Many of you will be knowing this verse. Okay. So I'll tell the meaning and then we'll talk about how this verse can tell us how we can get inner strength and resilience. So, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Yes, Krishna says that there are many sacrifices performed, there are many austerities done, and these are meant to be done for his pleasure, Krishna's pleasure. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that he is the Lord of all abodes, all places, and Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, he is the well-wisher of everyone. And understanding this, Jnatva Mam, if you know this, Shanti Mrichati. Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you will attain peace. So let's recite it 1 or 2 times, and especially like if the kids recite the verse. Okay. So Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Jnatva Mam Shanti Mrichati. Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Jnatva Mam Shanti Mrichati. You like to recite? Oh, is it? Okay. Okay. So we'll all recite once and then we move forward. Together. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shanti mrichati. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanishalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So thank you very much for coming today, and I was going to second the thanks that Ambarish Maharaj had given, but I think that is not required. Krishna took away the opportunity for the temptation for cricket through the rains. But so today we'll try to discuss on the topic of how each one of us can actually find inner peace through our spiritual practices. Okay, seeing this now. So the same verse, if we consider one verse of the Gita, we can understand this at least 6 different levels. One is the text. What does that it mean at a textual level? We look at the words, we look at the translation, we'll go into the meaning of each word and we understand that at the textual level. Then we can understand it at the chapter level. That in this particular chapter, what does this mean? Then we can go beyond. And if we go beyond, we can understand it also in terms of the Gita's philosophy. the overall philosophy of the Gita and where does this verse fit in that philosophy? Then we can go further and understand it in terms of the Krishna-Arjuna relationship. It means that Gita is offering a whole worldview. Within that, where does this verse particularly fall? What does it mean? Now, Krishna-Arjuna relationship means, while Krishna is speaking all this philosophy, he's speaking it to Arjuna. And it means something to Arjuna in that context. So what does it mean in that context to Arjuna? Then beyond that, we can talk about it, what it means for us today. For now, the Gita actually talks about two things, broadly speaking. It talks about dharma and it talks about bhakti. So for us, when we talk about it, how does it apply to us as, we could say, devotees? And then beyond that, we can say, how does the verse apply to us as human beings? Now, of course, humans and devotees are also human beings. But the point here is that the Gita, it's not all about bhakti alone. Gita is talking about dharma also. And dharma samsthapanarthaya, Krishna says. So there can be a broader meaning which need not be devotional in today's world. Now, of course, this is not exhaustive. Each verse can be understood in many different ways. You could put it, what the verse literally means, and what the verse means in the chapter, what the verse means in terms of the Gita's overall message, what the verse means for Arjuna, what the verse means for us as practicing devotees, and what the verse means for us as human beings. Not every verse can be understood in all the 6 ways, and there are other ways also in which you can understand the verse. Now, Srila Prabhupada generally focuses on the 3rd level, that what does the verse means in terms of the Gita's philosophy. And that is why whenever even Krishna is, for example, speaking in the 6th chapter, he talks about how Shuchau deshe pratisthapya sthiramasanam go to jungle, sit down in a secluded place and practice yoga over there. So there Prabhupada says in the purport that this is not practical. We should not, there's no use going to the forest, we should chant Hare Krishna. So now Prabhupada effectively is saying the opposite of what Krishna is saying. And then Prabhupada is calling his Bhagavad Gita as it is. Now that can seem outrageous. So what is going on over here? So how is Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is? The Gita has its own flow. If we consider that, say, if the Gita has, we discussed about the Gita's 18 verses in the first class. No, non-parenting. No. So if we consider the Gita has 3 sections. So now we see that the general one understanding is that the 3 sections deal with 3 subjects. What are the subjects? Does anyone remember? Karma Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, correct. Now here, the 6th chapter, it talks about Dhyan Yoga as a bridge. However, this is not an incorrect understanding, but it's an incomplete understanding. Actually speaking, if we consider the various paths like this, there's a hierarchy. This is Bhakti Yoga, this is Jnana Yoga, this is Karma Yoga. So the first 6 chapters actually talk about how one can go from Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. And that's why Yoginam api sarvesham, that is the last verse. Now, the middle 6 chapters simply focus on Bhakti Yoga. And then from the 13th chapter, how one can move from Jnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga is given. So in one sense, throughout the Gita, Krishna is building his argument towards Bhakti Yoga. So what Srila Prabhupada is doing when he is saying that his Bhagavad Gita is as it is, Prabhupada, so what if we consider the overall flow of the Gita? It's like this. No, it moves from one level to Bhakti Yoga culminating. So what Prabhupada is doing is, throughout the Gita, he is giving the conclusion of Bhakti Yoga. So every purport for Srila Prabhupada is an opportunity to emphasize the conclusion. And in that sense, in terms of giving the conclusion, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is as it is. And the Gita can be understood in different ways. Prabhupada himself said that if he had the time, he would have written one more commentary on the Gita. So this is Prabhupada's emphasis. And this is the Gita's flow. So now going back to our particular point now, if I said that there are multiple ways in which the Gita's verses can be understood. So this particular verse, literal meaning is that one will attain peace. Yatva mam shanti mrichyati, by knowing me. And knowing me in a particular way. What is that? As Krishna says, as the enjoyer, proprietor and benefactor. Three things. So I'll not go into all the 6 perspectives. Let's focus on some of them over here, because it's quite technical. Let's understand this verse first in terms of the Krishna-Arjuna relationship, and then in terms of how it applies to us today. Okay. So in terms of the Krishna-Arjuna relationship, actually these 3 things Krishna talks about, Arjuna mentions about himself. He says, for a bhoktaram yagatapasam. So Arjuna says, kim bhogair jivite nava. He says, how will we enjoy? So at the start of the Gita, when Arjuna's arguments for not fighting, when he's giving, he is saying basically these 3 things. He says, how can I be the enjoyer? How will I be able to enjoy if my own relatives and my elders are killed? And then he says that Rudhir Pradigdhan, that what is the use of gaining a kingdom? What is the value? Is a kingdom more valuable than our relatives? So he's thinking, I don't want to be a proprietor like this. And so he's thinking that I will be the proprietor. And then he also says that they may be blinded by by greed. Lobho pahata chetasa. But he says, we are not blinded by greed. They may be our ill-wishers, but we don't have to be their ill-wishers. We can be their well-wishers. So they may be fighting, but why should we fight? So Arjuna is also thinking that I will be their benefactor. So based on this calculation, when he thinks that fighting will not give me enjoyment, fighting, the property is not really worth it, and if I want to be a benefactor, then let me not fight. So he uses these 3 points to say that I will not fight. And Krishna is answering. Now what happens is, Arjuna gives all these 3 arguments. But the result of making these 3 arguments, putting himself in this position, the result is that Arjuna has no peace. Arjuna is in tam tatha krupaya vishtam achru purna kulekshanam. Arjuna is in agony. He is in great agony. He has no peace at all. So now what Krishna says to Arjuna is that he addresses these arguments in various ways. That what about enjoying, what about possessing, what about benedicting, what about doing good? So Krishna addresses these arguments at various levels, but essentially when Krishna is saying, instead of putting yourself in this position, if you put me in this position as the enjoyer, as the proprietor, as the benefactor, then you will have peace. So this is how Krishna is addressing Arjuna's argument. Now let's try to understand what this means. So actually each one of us is a part of Krishna. So if we can say that if it's not exactly a personal way of depicting, but a conceptual way of depicting. If you consider Krishna, then all of us are his parts. So it is not wrong for us to want to be enjoyers or proprietors or benefactors. This because those are attributes of Krishna. So we'll also have those attributes. Just as Krishna is Satchitananda, we also want to be Satchitananda. Krishna is Ishvara, we also have a tendency to be Ishvara. If we are parts of Krishna, the tendencies of Krishna will also be there within us. However, these tendencies should be in harmony with Krishna, not in separation from him. To the extent these tendencies become separate from him, so the idea is be a part, be not a part. So a part, not apart. So this is essentially, you could say, a poetic rendition of 15.7. What is 15.7? Anyone remembers? Mamevamsho jiva loke jiva bhutah sanatanaha manah shasthani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. So our mind and senses pull us apart from Krishna. But we are actually a part of Krishna. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, how will you attain peace? Yatva mam shanti mrichati. Now the shanti he is talking about is not the absence of fighting. Shanti, because the war is anyway going to happen. Even if he doesn't want to fight, the opponents want to fight. So the peace he is talking about here is inner peace. That you will get inner peace when you accept your situation and accept your role in your situation. The two things required for us. So when you're talking about peace, the peace, how do we find peace? The peace that Gita is talking about is not, first of all, absence of war, but it is, see, we all are fighting. Sometimes we fight, one of the ways we fight is we resent our situations. Why is this happening to me? So if we are resentful, then we just can't be peaceful. Oh, why did this person speak like this to me? Why is my health like this? Why is my boss like this? Why is my neighbor like this? Why am I like this? We can resent everything in life. So if we want peace, there is acceptance that is required. We need to accept. And what do we accept? Now, acceptance is not passivity. We need to accept our situation. This is the situation I'm in. But we also need to accept our role in the situation. It is not that I'm here and this is where I am going to be. We all have a particular role that we have to play in a particular situation. So if either of these we don't do, then the peace won't last. We accept our situation, that okay, this is the way I am right now. This is the place I am. But in this place, in this time, in this circumstance, what can I do? So accept our role in the situation. Now, what is the problem in we trying to be enjoyer, proprietor, benefactor? Because the problem is that we are conditioned souls. Now, what does conditioned souls mean? Now, it can at one sense mean that we have many conditionings. But another level means that our very existence depends on conditions. So we cannot be an enjoyer if the conditions are not right. There might be a big feast, but if my stomach is upset, then actually my stomach is upset, but seeing others eating that feast, my mind is even more upset. Isn't it? So our enjoyment depends on conditions. So everything that we do, it depends on conditions. Then similarly, if you want to own something, fine, we can have property. In some countries, there is no right to private property. Everything is owned by the state, and then some people can get some lease for some time. But even if we are in a country where we can have private property, but still our property doesn't stay with us. And the things may belong, but for how long? For how long will they stay with us? So again, conditions. Things can be just taken away from us at any time. So that is also dependent on conditions. And then well-wisher. We may want to be the well-wisher of others, but there could be two problems. First is, we may want to do good, but we don't know how to do good. Somebody might be sick, but if I'm not a doctor, I don't know how to help that person. So Secondly, what may happen is that even if we want to help, we may not have the power to help. The other person may not be ready to accept the help. So we can't do much at that time. So when we try to take any of these roles independently, our conditions limit us. Does that mean that we can't take these roles at all? That's not the point. We all have our souls, and we have been given individuality and individual initiative by Krishna. So we are meant to use that, no doubt about it. But we use it in a mood of service to Krishna. So basically, when we say that if Krishna is the enjoyer, then what does this mean? Oh, then Krishna is the enjoyer. Does that mean I am the sufferer? No, that is not the meaning. That Krishna is the proprietor. Does that mean I am the pauper? No, it's not like that. That Krishna is the enjoyer. In the Krishna Bhavna Amrit Mahakavya, it is said that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and the supreme source of enjoyment. So Krishna doesn't like to enjoy alone. Rather, when we say Krishna is the enjoyer, that changes our driving question. So the question is, what can please me in this situation? How can I enjoy in this situation? Now sometimes there's no way we can enjoy in that situation. There's just conditions limit us. But if we understand that Krishna is the enjoyer, let's put it this way, if you understand this conception, so there is the conception and the implication. The implication is, so what does it imply? If Krishna is the enjoyer, then my driving question becomes, how can I please Krishna? So we could say this is service attitude. Service attitude means, how can I please Krishna? And no matter what situation we are in, we can always do something to please Krishna. If we can't do anything, we can just chant his holy names. We can't do anything, even if we can't chant, we can remember him. We can always please Krishna. If we want to please ourselves, there are thousands of limitations. Now that doesn't mean that when we try to please Krishna, we won't be pleased. But what is the priority? How can I please Krishna? And so this is S. Then after that is, when we understand Krishna is the proprietor, everything belongs to Krishna. Then the question comes, offering. What can I offer to Krishna? We see that Hanuman wanted to unite Sita with Ram. So that was he didn't think that is my property. Ravana was thinking it's my property. So what can I offer to Krishna? If there's nothing to offer, I can at least offer my consciousness to Krishna. If everything is taken away from me, I can still offer my consciousness to Krishna. So service attitude is more in terms of the heart. And offering is more in terms of what we can give. Okay, I had that big thing right now. I had that big house. I could hold big program. Now I don't have that big house. Okay, I can still worship Krishna. I can maybe hold a small program. I can myself glorify Krishna. So what can I offer to Krishna? And in general, we don't realize the effect of the questions that are going on in our mind. We are by nature questioning creatures. We're constantly asking questions. For example, some of you may not even be aware, but the question may be, when will this class get over? What is there for prasad today? So, or if a cricket match were going on, maybe, what is the cricket score? So, questions are constantly going on. And in one sense, there's one Vedic scholar, I think Vidyaranya. He says, the purpose of education is to raise the quality of questions that we ask. That education, it is not just meant to, give us the earning. It is meant to change the question that we ask, raise the quality of questions that we ask. So we could say almost a person is defined by the kind of questions that we are asking. And that's why sometimes we may become devotees externally. But if our questions have not changed, the question that we are asking has not changed, then externally maybe we're a devotee, but internally we may still not be acting devotionally. Our thoughts may not be very devotional. So devotee means, how can I serve Krishna? Where is the opportunity for me to serve Krishna? How can I remember Krishna? What can I do for Krishna? Otherwise, sometimes we may come in the association of devotees also, and then we may be wanting to gossip. You know what is gossiping? Gossiping means, or when does gossip happen? It's when we hear something we like about someone we don't like. Oh, really? You know, I knew this was a bad guy. Now I know how he's a bad guy. Now I'll broadcast it to the whole world for public welfare. So, sometimes in devotee community also, there can be so much gossiping. Oh, you know, this person did this and this happened over there, that happened over there. Why? Because our driving question is not, how can I serve Krishna? How can I remember Krishna? It is, if our driving question has not changed, then we may be externally practicing bhakti, but internally we are not really practicing bhakti so much. And there may be people who may not be practicing bhakti at all. But if their driving question is, you know, what is the meaning of life? How can I live truly meaningfully? They may know nothing about Krishna, may not even be accepting Krishna. But actually, they may be in a more spiritually receptive situation than we may be. So we can say broadly, our questions, they don't just determine our knowledge, they determine our receptivity. What can we receive is determined by a question. So we could say our mind, we can say it's like a glass, and it can be opened this way, it can be opened this way, it can be opened this way, and whichever direction is open, something is going to fall into it. So our questions determine in which direction it is open. So if water is falling from all directions, then water is flowing from all directions, and if my mind is open this way, that if the glass is open this direction, water will come from here. Glass is open over here, water will come from here. If the glass is open this way, water will come from here. So we could say that our questions determine in which direction our mind is open. So bhakti, when Krishna says Jnatva mam shanti mrichyati, that you will attain peace. How does this peace come? It comes when our driving question changes. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, externally speaking, nothing has changed for Arjuna. He still has to fight. He will still have to shoot arrows toward Bhishma and Drona. It has not changed. But his understanding has changed. He's peaceful. See how Krishna's concerns are addressed. So bhoktaram yagyatapasam. That this war is not being fought for your pleasure. Now, did Krishna want the war? It's not that Krishna wanted the war. If Krishna, now if you apply this to the battlefield context, these three things, what do they mean? We'll see that it means 3-4 things. How is Krishna the enjoyer over there? It is not that Krishna enjoys fighting, the fighting or the killing of people. Rather, Krishna recognized over there that sometimes life requires hard decisions. And Krishna himself sought peace. He came as the peace envoy, as a peace messenger. And when that was not accepted by Duryodhana, it was just not just rejected, but it was arrogantly rejected by Duryodhana. And Duryodhana said that I will not give enough land to even put the tip of a needle through. Now he might have thought, great dialogue. But what was he doing by this? It's sometimes we invite somebody for a program and they don't want to come. So they come up with an excuse. Now they know that they are making an excuse. We know that they are making an excuse. They know that we know that they are making an excuse. But still, at least they are being polite enough to try to come up with an excuse. If instead they say, "Oh, even if I die, my dead body will never come to your program." In that case, they are not just saying no to the program. They are like slamming the door in the face of the person, or just kicking the person in the face, you could say. So Duryodhana didn't just reject Krishna's proposal. His reply was as an arrogant rejection of Krishna himself. So at that time, the war became inevitable. And at that time, Krishna is now telling Arjuna, you have to consider what will give Krishna pleasure. Now, Krishna's pleasure, in one sense, he wants everyone to be happy. But there is the principle that if we can't make everyone happy, we seek the greater good. If we can't see universal good, if we can't gain universal good, then we seek the greater good. So Duryodhana will have to be punished. He will have to be disempowered, have to be neutralized. But by that, the world will be benefited. So in that sense, Krishna will be pleased when dharma is established in the world. So if we try to do something, now the activity that Arjuna was doing was not pleasurable for Arjuna. Shooting Bhishma and Drona was definitely not enjoyable. But he knew that this purpose is there. That purpose is what will enable him to rise above this journey. What is the purpose? I'm going to please Krishna. Sometimes, one devotee once came and asked me a question. He says, "Prabhu, I have a serious philosophical question." I said, "Okay." He said, "If we insult someone and that person doesn't get the insult, then do we get the karma?" So I said that actually, if you are really thinking about karma, then why insult? But the point is that actually the karma comes from multiple things. It is three things: what the action that we do, the consequence of the action, and the intent of the action. So even if the action doesn't register, the other person doesn't feel hurt. If you had the intent to hurt, then still that is considered culpable, isn't it? Now, if somebody goes into somebody's house to murder someone, and that person doesn't succeed in murdering, that does not mean that the person is no longer a criminal, isn't it? So the intent was there. Now, of course, if the action is done, the consequences are much more. But even though the intent is there anyway. So why I was saying this is, so I asked, why do you want to insult some other devotee? He said, this devotee is he's so demanding, so domineering. He says, the only pleasure I can get in the serving that devotee is to insult him. I said, my God, maybe doing such a service is toxic for you. You shouldn't be doing such a, take up some other service. No, if you are offending that devotee, you are offending yourself, then better take up some other service. He said, no, I can't do that. He says, why? He says, because my spiritual master had told me to serve that devotee. He said, then if you were to insult that devotee, will your spiritual master be pleased? He said, no. So I said, don't think that you are serving that devotee. Think that you are serving your spiritual master and you are tolerating that devotee. So sometimes some activities may not be enjoyable for us. But if they are done for a higher purpose, then that can give us the capacity to even do something that is difficult. So bhoktaram yagitapasam means that, okay, the service that Arjuna has to do, shooting arrows at Bhishma and Drona, that's extremely difficult. Now there's no pleasure for him in that at all. But how can he do that? By remembering, he's not fighting against Bhishma and Drona. He's fighting for Krishna. And it's just unfortunate that Bhishma and Drona are fighting on the side opposite to Krishna. So when we remember a higher purpose, when we remember the purpose of pleasing Krishna, then even the activities that are, leave alone not pleasant, that are actually unpleasant for us, they can also become bearable. They can become tolerable. So I earlier talked about, if we are resenting our situation, we cannot have any peace. So how do we accept our situation? By seeing that, okay, how do we accept our situation, accept our role in the situation? I am in this situation, I am not serving this person, I am serving Krishna. And shifting that focus enables us to bear that situation and be peaceful in that situation. So Krishna knows the difficulty that we are going through. If some person is disagreeable, it is not that, or some person is difficult, it is not that we are the only person in the universe who knows that and Krishna doesn't know it. Now Krishna also knows that, okay, functioning in this particular situation is difficult for us, dealing with this particular person is difficult for us. Okay, but if we are facing that situation, then Krishna is pleased by that. When Narad Muni came and brought a flower, a parijat flower for Rukmini, then Satyabhama demanded, she was not just a flower, so Krishna gave a whole tree to her. Now at that time, actually, Rukmini felt bad. Rukmini is a little bit more tolerant, patient wife, and Satyabhama is more of a dominant, demanding wife, Manina. That's why Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami explains in Gopal Champu, that actually it is not Rukmini who is the expansion of Radharani. It is Satyabhama who is the expansion of Radharani, and Rukmini is the expansion of Chandravali. But the point is that Rukmini, she tolerated it. And later on, Krishna told her that I am very pleased with you. When I gave that tree to Satyabhama, Parijat tree, I expected that you would demand something from me. But when you didn't demand, you won my heart by that. So Krishna knows the difficulties we are going through. And if we focus on how can I please Krishna in this situation, there is always some door open for us to please Krishna. Now, pleasing Krishna doesn't mean constantly displeasing us or displeasing ourselves or torturing ourselves. Some situation may be extremely difficult, then we may just have to walk away from that situation. But some situations, they are bearable, but our mind makes them unbearable. So then, okay, let me be, how can I serve Krishna in this situation? How can I please Krishna, serve Krishna in this situation? That opens the doors for us. And second is that now, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So Arjuna is thinking, yeah, if the Pandavas, Kauravas have that property, do I really need to take this property? Let them have the Kuru kingdom, we'll live in the forest. In fact, Yudhishthira asked this question later on. He says, Duryodhana was not a bad ruler. And why did I have to fight to take the kingdom from him? Now, Acharyas have explained over there that Duryodhana was not a bad ruler is not so much an objective statement of fact as a subjective reflection of Yudhishthira's consciousness. When the same vein of thought, Yudhishthira also says that I am such a sinful person, for protecting my body, so many people had to die. This he speaks in the Bhagavatam. So now, it could be that Duryodhana had not exploited anyone, had not abused the citizens, but there was a agenda behind it. The agenda was that Duryodhana knew that the Pandavas were going to come back. And during the time when he was ruling, he wanted to win his citizens over. That's why he had given them many, what in the Indian language is called freebies. You just try to win the electorate over by giving them free things. So he had been kind. Duryodhana was actually, whatever you say, he was a good politician. One time I was invited to a leftist university in India, So this leftist university, they're all very subversive. So they said that you can speak on the Mahabharata, but don't speak the traditional all moral stories. So I said, okay, I'll speak on the topic of leadership lessons from Duryodhana. And they said, very good class, please come. So now I spoke on the topic. I spoke of how actually if you have one brother or sister, try to get that one brother to follow you. Very, very difficult, isn't it? Duryodhana had 99 brothers and they're all following him. He had leadership skills. There is guna karma vibhagashaha. So in terms of karma, he was a good leader. And that's how he actually is, there is this word spin doctor. Have you heard spin doctor, the word? Spin doctor means that person gives such a spins to the story that it's one thing that has happened, but you make it appear the completely opposite has happened. You doctor the story and give it a completely different spin, like that. So that's how he had tried to dishonor Draupadi, he had defrauded the Pandavas of all the kingdom, and yet at the end of the exile, when the war was there, he had 11 Akshauhini warriors. How did he get soldiers? So many kings allied with him. How did so many kings ally with him? Because he told his side of the story. And now his side of the story might be completely false. But what happened was the Pandavas were in the forest. And they were cut off from the world. So they were cut off from the world, so there was no one to tell their side of the story. And Duryodhana was telling his side of the story. And in Kali Yuga it is said that Satyatve Dharshtyam that the most audacious person is considered the most truthful. So Hitler's spokesperson Goebbels, he had this slogan that if you tell a falsehood loud enough, big enough and long enough, people will think it to be the truth. So Duryodhana was a good politician that way. He was able to win people over to his side. But the point was that if there had been no threat of the Pandavas, he would have no reason to be good thereafter. Afterwards, he still had exploitative tendencies. Those tendencies are not just going to go away overnight. So he would have exploited people. Even if he had not exploited during the kingdom, he would have exploited later. So the point was that the kingdom is not the Kauravas, it is not Duryodhana's, it is not Yudhishthira's. It is Krishna's kingdom. And everybody is actually a caretaker of the kingdom. So who will take care better for Krishna's purpose? So Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So from this perspective of you or me, of the Kauravas or the Pandavas, you may say, okay, I don't want the kingdom. But you may not want the kingdom, but maybe you are the best person to actually rule the kingdom. In general, one principle we can say in spirituality is a person who doesn't want the position is the most qualified to have the position. Not necessarily qualified in terms of the abilities, but qualified in terms of disposition. Person is craving for the position, then they may do anything to use that position, to hold on to that position afterwards. So Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. And then Suhridam Sarva. So this, what does it mean? So this talks about offering. Okay, you may have a kingdom, you may not have a kingdom. We may have wealth, we may not have wealth. Now, our happiness doesn't depend on what we have. It depends on what we do with what we have. It is, we can have a lot of money, but if we are using that money for, okay, I want to buy more, I want to buy more, I want to get this, I want to get that, then no matter how much money we have, it will never be enough. So normally we think, if my happiness, it depends on what I have. Well, at a basic level, it is true. If I don't have food, then I cannot be happy. So at that basic level, it is true. But beyond once I need that, you can care what I do with what I have. It is, if we are using our wealth constructively, then that wealth can bring happiness. If somebody is an addict and somebody is a young addict and that person gets a big inheritance, getting that money is the worst thing that can happen to them, isn't it? So that money will make them more and more miserable eventually. So what happens depends on what we do with what we have. So sometimes we may have certain position, we may have certain possessions, and they may just be taken away from us. So we understand that they were never Mars. Okay, now what is with me right now? Let me use that in Krishna's service. So if you see Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America, he had nothing. But whatever he had, he was using in Krishna's service. So, Sarvalok Maheshwaram, this kingdom, you're not seeking it for yourself, you're seeking it for Krishna's pleasure. There's a Prabhupada disciple who is compiling as much as possible incidents from Srila Prabhupada's pre-ISKCON life or pre-going to the West life. We have the first volume, lifetime preparation, but there are many more details they're trying to get. So one of the Mahantas of the temple in Vrindavan, he told that how when Prabhupada would get letters, Prabhupada would actually take the envelope of the letters and open the envelope and make that into a page. And he would write his Bhagavatam on that page. Because Prabhupada had practically no money at that time. And he said that outside his temple, there was a stationery shop. And he was just going to his temple and he heard Swamiji speaking. They call him Swami Maharaj over there. So Prabhupada is titled that ISKCON devotees are given to Srila Prabhupada, to V.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So Prabhupada was telling the stationery man, he says that actually my refill has got over. He says, no need for you to give me a pen, can you just give me one refill? So Prabhupada was asking for a refill. So what he had, he was using in Krishna's service. Every single thing that Prabhupada had, he was using. And when he got a lot, he used a lot. So Prabhupada sometimes contrasted himself. He said that Prabhupada said that if you give money in one hand to me, I'll stretch my other hand for money. Now that can seem greed, but that was not greed. When Prabhupada, the devotees built a grand temple for Prabhupada in New York at one time, we had 11-story building. And one floor was they devoted like a big hall for Prabhupada for classes and for darshan. And when Prabhupada came there, and the first thing Prabhupada says, oh, this is so nice, just like my room in Radha Damodar. And the devotees, if any of you have been to Radha Damodar in Vrindavan, the room of Prabhupada is very small, and practically very sparse and small. And this was a grand room. And Prabhupada said, yeah, this is I can sit, here I can talk with people, here I can take prasad. So Prabhupada did not see the grandness of the room. Prabhupada saw the purpose of the room. And functional perspective, so Prabhupada was not attached to big things for himself. Whatever he got, he used in Krishna's service. So if we are facing difficult situations, how can I serve Krishna? And how can I serve Krishna means, what can I offer to Krishna right now? And okay, so what can I offer to Krishna right now? It can be, okay, I can offer my consciousness, I can offer my prayers, I can offer my gratitude. And when we think of this, what can I offer to Krishna? We'll find that not only peace will come, but beyond peace, purpose will come. Peace is, okay, I accept this purpose, what can I do in this situation? And the third part is, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. So Arjuna is thinking, how can I kill Bhishma and Drona? How can I shoot arrows? Ishubi pratyotsyami pujara varisudana. Arjuna asks, strong vehemence, I cannot shoot arrows at them. But Krishna is implying to Arjuna, you think that your arrows are going to hurt Bhishma and Drona? Actually, they are in a situation where they are already hurting. That they have to fight against you Pandavas, that situation hurts them. And even when they're fighting against you, they're fighting for Duryodhana. Duryodhana never has sufficient faith in them. He always accuses them, you are partial to the Pandavas. And therefore, he would shoot words which will hurt more than arrows. That one time he said to Bhishma, and another time he said to Drona. Both of them said the same thing. One day his army was routed. He suffered a very bad day. And what did he say that time? If If you are not going to fight wholeheartedly, then please step down. Karna has promised me that he will destroy the Pandavas. Let him become the commander. Drona got so exasperated, he said to him, "O prince, my body is lacerated by arrows, which appears to me because I was fighting for your cause. When you can see the wounds on my body, why are you wounding me with your arrow-like words?" He spoke that. So it was a very painful situation for them to be in. But somehow both of them were circumstantially obliged to be in that situation. So Krishna is telling that you think you are the well-wisher. Krishna is telling Arjuna that you think you are the well-wisher of Bhishma and Drona, but I am their greatest well-wisher. I know what will be actually good for them. Actually, you are thinking that they will die, but they are souls, and they are virtuous souls, they are devoted souls. They are hurting because they are in this particular situation right now. And if you do your duty, you will free them from this painful situation. They will become elevated to a higher destination. So my plans for them and for you are better than whatever your plans might be. So this understanding that Krishna is our well-wisher, it brings patience. So patience, sometimes when we are going through a difficult situation, at that time resilience simply means waiting it out. Just have to wait. We often say that material pleasures are temporary. That is true. But the good part of that is material troubles are also temporary. When there is a storm, we may be looking for shelter. But nobody in the storm is afraid, thinking, what if the storm never ends? No, storms are temporary. So patience. This patience comes when we understand that Krishna is our well-wisher. Krishna is the benefactor of everyone. It is not that everything that happens is good. Bad things do happen in life. And it's not as devotees, we have to somehow imagine that everything that happens is good. It is some people. There is this Gita Sar. Sometimes you might see in shops in India or India. Says, "Jo hua, wo अच्छा हुआ. जो हो रहा है, वो अच्छा हो रहा है. और जो होगा, वो भी अच्छा ही होगा." Whatever happened was good. Whatever is happening is good. Whatever will happen will be good. Now, I've read the Gita many times. I recited the Gita many, many more times. I never found any verse which comes anywhere close to this. It is a good sounding message, but the Gita doesn't say this. It is not that when Draupadi was disrobed or attempted to be disrobed, nobody told her, "Jo hua, wo acha hua." Whatever happened was good. It's actually, the world is a cruel place and brutal things happen in the world. It's actually insulting to say that whatever happened is good. So this is not the teaching of the Gita. In fact, that is the whole thrust of the Gita is not what is happening. The thrust of the Gita is what are we doing, or what should we be doing. Prachami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. What should I be doing? So we can say there's a difference between everything that happens is good and everything that happens is for good. That Krishna can bring good even out of the bad. So if you want to say, what is the Gita's teaching? Everything that happens is good? No. Everything that happens can be for good. There's two very different things. This is not the teaching of the Gita. This is the teaching of the Gita. Everything that happens can be for good. The Krishna can bring good even out of the bad things that happen in our life. Sometimes some people may do bad things to us. Sometimes our own mistakes may lead to bad things to happening to us. But if we continue serving Krishna, how can I serve Krishna? What can I offer Krishna? If we have those questions, and then if we stay patient, then we will find that Krishna will take us to a better place, internally and maybe even externally. And thus, this Krishna conscious vision, Shatma Mam Shanti Micchati. When we understand that Krishna is the center, that how can I please Krishna? What can I offer Krishna? How can I be patient? Keeping faith in Krishna. If we keep these three questions, we'll find that our capacity to bear difficulties will increase substantially. We can't change our situations, but we can change how much our consciousness is controlled by our situations. And how do we change that? By shifting our consciousness above our situations. So this book, Yatvamam Shanti Mrichati. And when we ask this question, we will find that even extremely difficult situations, they can become manageable for us. It's not that they become easy, but they become manageable for us. And Srila Prabhupada is in America, he concluded this incident. And when Prabhupada was in America, and there are many times when he experienced great difficulties. And you are doing this glorious mission, and I would like to assist you. Can I come there to assist you? Prabhupada was happy. He said that, yes, talk with your spiritual master and let your spiritual master write to me, and then we will talk and we'll make an arrangement for you to come here. Prabhupada was appreciative of the help. But then he said, Swamiji, I think that my spiritual master may not be happy. So can you arrange for a ticket for me to come here? Then after I come there, then we can both tell our spiritual master that I am here. So Prabhupada said, don't think like this. Now your spiritual master and I, we are all working for the same mission, the service of Bhaktivedanta Thakur. Talk with him, and then then we can make arrangements. And then what happened was that when he talked with his spiritual master said that, who is this Bhaktivedanta Swami? He's going on his own work. He has his own ideas. He was never a part of Bhaktivedanta Thakur's mission. Because if from their perspective, many of these God brothers who were like Mathadipatis, they were dedicated devotees in their own way. And they had served Bhaktivedanta Thakur. They lived in the same matha for so long. And Prabhupada was a grahastha. Prabhupada was like, if Prabhupada had been in today's ISKCON, we would have considered Prabhupada to be not a serious devotee. Isn't it, Yeah, in 12 years, he met Bhaktivedanta Thakur about maybe a dozen times. He said, why are you so busy with your life? Can't you come and meet Prabhu? Can't you meet your Guru Maharaj? What are you doing? So, from their perspective, they didn't think of him as a great soul. So then that disciple's mind that brahmachari's mind got so poisoned. He said, Swamiji, your mission is not bona fide. He wrote to Prabhupada and he says, your mission is doomed. He says that I have no interest in coming to a mission that is whimsical and doomed. Now, this was actually a great insult. It is his God brother's disciple is like his disciple. And we cannot speak like that. Even in ordinary relationship, we don't speak like that with our elders. Or to speak with somebody who is like a spiritual elder for us. So that was crushing. And there was practically no help from Prabhupada from India. And he tried multiple things. He tried to get people, there's no help for people. Then he tried to get funds. And if Prabhupada, just by writing letters from America, got one Padapat Singhania to give money, he agreed to give money. But then he wanted to build a grand temple. And again, he said, Prabhupada said, let's build a small temple first. Let's have a center, and then eventually as it grows, then we'll get far away. Prabhupada said at that time, India was under socialist rule. The government had a lot of control over everything. And money going out of India was almost very difficult, forex. So if you want to build a grand temple, they would not get the money out. So Prabhupada said, let's have some small funds and I'll start a small center over here. So he said, no, if I'm going to build a temple, we need to have a stupa, we need to have Garuda, we need to have all the traditional trappings. See, for him, it was a matter of more of religious pride. This is one of the challenges that if you consider consider broad Hindu tradition with other traditions, the Jews are the smallest religion in the world, among the major religions in terms of number. And you will not see many grand synagogues. There are, but not many across the world. But the Jews are among the most influential people, because Jews, they focus their money on things that will change society's perception, that will influence public opinion. Jews are in the movie industry, they are in the media, they are in law, and they are in education. So much faculty. There are so many Jewish centers. But Hindus, we will go into fields of individual excellence, but not in fields of social influence. So because of that, the mainstream opinion of Hinduism is shaped by people who don't have Hindu interests at heart. And because of that, basically Hindus will be very happy to give money for a big temple. But if you want to start a university to teach the Bhagavad Gita, they don't want to give any money for that. Prabhupada, when he went to Tirupati, the first thing he said is that they should be using all this Lakshmi for preaching Bhagavad Gita. He says they don't have to give us the money, but they should use it for preaching Bhagavad Gita. So somehow he said that he was not interested in that. He wanted that, I want to build a temple. So Prabhupada wrote to his godbrother. He said, can you talk with the Indian government? His godbrother had also met the President of India. So like Prabhupada had met him. So he said, can you talk with him and get this money released? And his godbrother didn't even bother to reply to Prabhupada's letter. So at that time, Prabhupada could have been crushed. But what did Prabhupada think at that time? He said that with that last letter, or the silence from his godbrother, that convinced Prabhupada that if this mission is going to be successful, it will not be with any help from India. So Prabhupada's focus was not what facilities I have, it was how can I serve? And then he turned his all energy to the Western people who were coming for the programs. And then they took time to become serious, but once they became serious, they gave their life. So Prabhupada was not bitter. Prabhupada gyatva mam shanti pruchati. Even when Prabhupada was all alone in America, you could say from a material perspective, almost everything that Prabhupada did had not been successful. He tried businesses, they were not very successful. And he tried League of Devotees, was not successful. He tried Back to God, was not successful. He had written Bhagavatam. It was successful in the sense that he got some good reviews from influential people. But beyond that, it is not that anybody had become a devotee by reading the Bhagavatam at that time. So there was no success. Normally what happens is, again and again and again, if we fail, it is natural to become bitter. But those who met Srila Prabhupada, even when he was walking on the streets of New York all alone, they didn't see any bitterness in Prabhupada. Prabhupada was joyful. Because for him, how can I serve Krishna? What can I offer to Krishna? All day Prabhupada would talk about Krishna to the people who came to meet him. And all night he would talk about Krishna to the people who didn't come to meet him. He was writing his books for future generations. And thus Prabhupada was peaceful. He said, Prabhupada would say he was your ever well-wisher. So Krishna is everyone's well-wisher, and Prabhupada was acting in a mood of service to Krishna. So Prabhupada accepted Krishna's plan. He said that if Krishna wants him, his mission will be successful. If Krishna doesn't want, his mission will not be successful. But Prabhupada was ready to accept that. Whatever happened. Nachao, Prabhu, nachao se mate. Krishna, please make me dance. So while Prabhupada's example is extremely elevated and transcendental, but the principle we can apply at our level also. At whatever be the situation we are in, we think of these three things. How can I serve Krishna? What can I offer to Krishna? How can I be patient in this situation? We'll find that we will discover strength that we did not know we had. No matter how difficult the situation we are in, if we change our driving questions, we will be able to face difficulties, and not only face difficulties, but emerge stronger through those difficulties. So I'll summarize. I spoke today about this verse Bhoktaram Megatapasam. We discussed at multiple levels at which each Gita verse can be understood. Meaning, literal meaning in the chapter, meaning in the Gita's philosophy, meaning for Arjuna, meaning for us as devotees, meaning for us as human beings. So we focus primarily on the meaning of this verse for Arjuna and then for us, both as devotees and as primarily as devotees. So for Arjuna, what this verse means is Arjuna in the first chapter is thinking that I want to enjoy winning this kingdom. I don't even want this kingdom. Why should I be the proprietor? And then I want to do good to the opposite side. Why should I fight against them? So Krishna said that actually, when we try to be enjoyers, proprietors, or benefactors, because we are conditioned souls, we will soon get thwarted because conditions will limit us. But if you understand that Krishna is all these things, and how can I serve Krishna? So if Krishna is the enjoyer, how can I serve Krishna? How can I please Krishna? If Krishna is the proprietor, well, I may have, what can I offer to Krishna? And if Krishna is the benefactor, then how can I patiently trust Krishna? If we ask these questions, then any situation we are in, we will be able to face that situation. So Arjuna, Krishna, we talked about how the enjoyer, that Krishna didn't enjoy fighting against the killing of the Kauravas, but Krishna wanted the greater good, if not the universal good. And therefore, for the world's good, the dharmic rule was being established was important. Then we talked about Yudhishthir, Duryodhana's arrogance, and Yudhishthir did not want the kingdom, but the kingdom under the Pandavas' rule would be good for everyone. So then the well-wisher, Bhishma and Drona would be benefited not by simply not fighting, Arjuna not fighting and they staying in that situation, but by they being liberated from that situation and being elevated. Talk also about how Srila Prabhupada, in extremely difficult situations, was able to persist because he had this service attitude. So for a devotee, resilience comes by Krishna-centeredness. We can't control our circumstances, but we can ensure that our consciousness is not controlled by our circumstances. And that happens when we raise our consciousness toward Krishna instead of letting it stuck in the circumstances. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Are there any questions or comments? Yes, please.
Just quickly, the last one you mentioned, the Krishna's benefactor, what was it that we said we should do? How can we patiently do what?
How can we patiently trust Krishna? Trust Krishna. I said that everything that happens is not good, but everything that happens can be for good. Krishna can bring good even out of bad situations.
I think that point that you mentioned about Srila Prabhupada was very, very wonderful. It was a practical example of how you class. So thank you very much for quoting that nice example. When Srila Prabhupada was going through all these difficulties, so the failures is one thing, but when the people around you start talking negatively about your failure, Srila Prabhupada is quite exalted, he could tolerate it and do it. But are there any practical tips for when people are actually failing in some situations? But not only that, but the people around them are also pulling them down with the negative words. So how can they actually go through the situation?
See, if we are failing and people around us are criticizing us, condemning us, pulling us down, then it becomes extremely difficult. Yes, that is undoubtedly true. See, the loneliness is very difficult to bear with. But the most painful loneliness is not being physically alone. It is being surrounded by people who don't understand us. Not only they don't understand us, worse is they don't even care to understand us. They're convinced that their understanding is right. So it's very, very difficult to be in that situation. And that is why it is important that we have, we could say, multiple relationships. We can't depend only on one relationship. Even in a spiritual circle also, we have a Diksha Guru, but we have many Shiksha Gurus. And we have a community of devotees. So what happens is sometimes life is unpredictable and people may misunderstand us, and for good or for bad. We see the example of Draupadi. She had 5 powerful husbands. She was in the Kuru assembly. The Kuru assembly where all powerful warriors are there. It's like from a material perspective, you cannot think of a place safer than that. It's like a police station or military barrack with all the best police people over there. And there she was so horrendously dishonored. So what did she do at that time? See, generally we serve Krishna with devotees. And in her case, her husband were devotees. But at that time, when she turned toward Krishna, towards her husbands, they're just helpless. On one side, she understood their situation, but on the other side, she just couldn't understand. How can you stay silent in the situation? So she was shocked, she was enraged, she was aghast. But then she turned toward Krishna. And she just focused on Krishna alone. So there may be situations when even in the association of devotees, we may be left alone. And we may be misunderstood, then we have to take shelter of Krishna directly. Now, of course, if the association of devotees is speaking negatively about us, then we shouldn't presume that they are all wrong and I am right and I should take shelter of Krishna. We should seriously consider, maybe if several devotees are saying negatively about me, then maybe something is wrong with me. But there are people who just may not understand us. And some people may just speak negatively about us. We can't really control that. So there may be times when we need to take shelter of Krishna directly. But beyond that, it is important that we try to find at least some like-minded association. There will be people in our life, even as devotees, there will be people who will devalue us. Why? Because even within bhakti, different devotees have different definitions of success. See, that means some devotees may think that success means distributing books. And you two people don't distribute books. What are you doing? Do you do any service to Prabhupada? Some people may say that, that actually success is building a grand temple. You've been here for 10 years, no temple. What? What do you do? Somebody may say, service to Prabhupada, Krishna consciousness is memorizing verses. As one preacher, he told me that he has a simple test for how serious a community is. He says when he recites the Bhagavatam verse, how many people recite the Bhagavatam verse with him? If nobody recites, this community is not at all serious. Now, yeah, maybe that devotee for them that is success, but that is not a success for everyone. So the thing is that different devotees will have different definitions of success. They're all turning towards Krishna. You can say, if you say Krishna consciousness, this is a big umbrella. Within that, we all have our small umbrellas. Now the problem is that we think this is not a small umbrella, this is the only umbrella. So what we do is, this is our small umbrella. We think this is the only umbrella. There's no umbrella beyond that. That's why there's a problem because of this. So what can we do about this? We need like-minded association. Not just association of devotees, like-minded association. So when we have like-minded sajatiya asha, Bhagavad Sangha, Rupa Goswami says that the reason is that like-minded association, they will be people who will understand us. See, if we consider, if I am here, then there will be inevitably people who will devalue me. It's just natural. It's just natural. That there are some people will not understand us, people are like that. So if we are surrounded by people who are devaluing us, we will be discouraged. We need some people who value us. Now, not value me in the sense of like just flattering me and sending me on an ego trip, not like that. But just value me at a human level, value me as a devotee. So what we need to do is, if we are functioning like this, the people who devalue, we need to, in one sense, keep a distance from them. Don't take their words so seriously. These are people who devalue us. And people who value us, we bring them closer to us. So take their words more seriously. Take their comments to the heart and try to apply them. But anybody and everybody, we can't, even in devotee community, we can't take everybody's comments seriously. And then one more point is like-minded association. What does this mean? I was trying to speak on this topic in the Sunday class, but like-minded, three things, that we understand their mind. What does that mean? That different devotees may give answer. If you ask a question, different devotees answer in different ways. If they hear a class also, so some people, the way they explain, it makes great sense to us. And some other people, when they explain, it's like their explanation doesn't answer a question, rather it raises 10 more questions. Isn't it? So it just doesn't make sense to us sometimes. So we understand their mind. By mind means everybody has a mind, and the way their mind works, hey, that's nice. And then more important than that is they understand our mind. So when we ask a question, oh, I know where you're coming from. Oh, I know. Okay. This is. So this is where you're coming from. That is good. So, for example, so if somebody has a lot of questions, then actually, when I was introduced to Bhakti, I had a lot of questions. Once I was going with Radhesham Prabhu was my Shiksha Guru, so I was going with Radhesham Prabhu to Mumbai, and so he said, "Can I ask some questions?" He said, "Sure." Then I had like a 3 full-scale pages full of all questions. So Radhesham Prabhu looked at all this. He says, "We'll need several trips to Mumbai and back." So he was very kind. He answered many of my questions patiently. But then after there's another devotee. He one day came to me, and he was also senior devotee. He says, that I see that you ask a lot of questions. And when you ask a lot of questions, that means you have a lot of doubts. If you continue having doubts like this, samshaya atma vinashyati. The doubting soul will be lost. I was a little taken aback by that time. But then afterwards, it took many years for me to understand that there's a difference between samshaya and prashna. Many times at the end of a class, we say, I have a doubt. No, you don't have a doubt, you have a question. So, samshaya is generally considered negative. But prashna is considered positive. Munaya sadhu prishtoyam bhavadbir lokamangalam yatkta sadhu prishno enatma suprasidati. So he says, you are asking great questions, Shukadeva Goswami says to Parikshit Maharaj. So prashna is appreciated. When we ask prashna, the idea is that we accept the authority of the other person. Yes, you know and I want to know. But when there's samshaya, I don't accept your authority and therefore I'm questioning. It's a very different disposition. So they understand our mind. They understand where we are coming from. And the last thing is, this is also important. It's not that our mind is always right. They help us understand our mind. That means sometimes the way we think may not be right. That we may think in a particular way and there may be some flaw in that thinking. But unless somebody explains, okay, you're thinking like this, but this thinking is right this far, but this here it goes wrong. So that way, then we can understand and move forward. So we need like-minded association. So when I did my Bhakti Shastri, Purnachandra Maharaj was my Bhakti Shastri teacher. So he asked many questions. So he said, you asked so many questions, I'll give you a new name. He says, Prashna Sagar. So after that in a class, so you would say, Prashna Prabhu, do you have a Prashna? So anyway, so he taught one module to us, and then after 1 year he came back again. And then when he came back, so I said, Prabhu, last time I've troubled you with a lot of questions. He said, I won't trouble you with so many questions. He says, I'm sure you won't trouble me. He says, so what do you mean? He says that, you have been chanting Hare Krishna for 1 year. You will gain more realization that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not an engineering object to be analyzed. He says questions can give you understanding, but ultimately you have to do service. And by service, the heart becomes soft and you understand. So, yes, there are some questions which you can answer immediately, some questions it takes time, it takes purification. So, if he had said that the first time only, if I had asked a question, the first thing he had said is, Krishna is not an engineering object, cannot analyze. Then I would have become not interested in him at all. So they understand our mind and they help us understand our mind. So even if we can find one devotee like that, we need to treasure that association. That even if that devotee is not geographically where we are and they're somewhere else, we go for some yatra, go for some pilgrimage, we find them. If we sometimes we just it's like uh, sometimes when a boy and a girl fall in love with each other, they think they fall in love with each other. Let's say there's chemistry between them. So sometimes there is spiritual chemistry between two people. The spirituality is beyond chemistry, but but just the two way people think, it just gels. So if we find like that, we need to treasure that association. Then we won't be so misunderstood. We won't feel so desolate at that time. Thank you very much. Any last question? Okay. Any last questions? Okay. Okay. Yes, true.
So, earlier you were talking about whatever happens is for our good versus after whatever happens is can be for our good.
Whatever happens is good. It's intrinsically good.
So, I'm just trying to relate with, see, we do activity, we do karma, but the result, the fruits are not in our control.
Okay.
Right? So, we should accept whatever we get. Like, doing the duty is our philosophy. That's what we do. But the results are not in it. We should accept whatever results are there. So, from that perspective, I think that whatever happens is like, Krishna being merciful is just that much. Will be accepted.
Okay. So if we consider that whatever happens is Krishna arranging, Krishna's mercy, well, it's not that simple. Because see, Krishna is the supreme controller, not the sole controller. He's the supreme controller. When Dushasana is disrobing Draupadi, is it that Krishna wanted Dushasana to do that? No. It is Dushasana wanted and Krishna allowed. So to say that, in one sense, sometimes people say, why is God doing this to me? Well, before that you would ask, is God doing this? God may be allowing it rather than doing it. There's a difference between the two of them. So what it means is that there are three factors which shape actions. There's God's will, free will, and evil. So these three things determine what happens. So now within our philosophy, there's no such thing as evil. There's no Satan. But the idea is what God's will is supreme. But below that, each of us has free will. And when we talk about free will, so God's will is always good. But free will can make mistakes. And evil does misdeeds, not just mistakes. See, mistakes means, okay, I was not thinking clearly. I did not know how to act. And that means we didn't want to do something wrong, but we did something wrong. That's a mistake. Misdeed is where we wanted to hurt someone, where somebody was actually evil in that sense. So now when things happen in this world, all these three play a role. It is not just God's will that makes everything happen. Sometimes it may be because of our mistakes. It may be because of somebody else's mistake. Say somebody goes for a surgery and the doctor makes a mistake in the surgery. Then, now was that God's will? Well, it is not God's will, but it is within God's plan. Even if that mistake is there, that has happened, Krishna will still make sure that the devotee is still within that person's life is still within Krishna's plan. But that the doctor make the mistake was not Krishna's plan. No, if we start saying that our mistakes and our misdeeds are Krishna's plan, then why will we get the karma for those things? Isn't it? So our mistakes and our misdeeds are ours. Our means, I'm not talking you or me, it's humanity in general. So that's why we can say that everything that happens is within Krishna's plan. But it is not Krishna doing those things. And we could say in many ways, if those things had not happened, that might have been better. But they happened. Okay, now Prabhupada, when he was trying to share Krishna Bhakti, so many of his disciples fell away. Was that for good? Well, you could say maybe other devotees became more sober by that. But then, was it really necessary for that devotee to fall? Maybe not. So our broad philosophical understanding is that Krishna's plan is never thwarted. But that does not mean everything that happens is Krishna's plan necessarily. There's a difference between that. That means people may do certain things which are not what Krishna wanted. Like a simple example, okay. I think this is a good example to illustrate this point. That say, when Krishna went as peace messenger, what happened? Duryodhana rejected. And Krishna failed. Now, can God fail? Can a tiny soul thwart God's plan? Well, apparently it did, isn't it? Krishna went as a peace messenger and Krishna failed. But no, Krishna had some other plan. Krishna told Vidura the previous night that Vidura said, "Why have you come here, Krishna? You know Duryodhana is not going to listen to you." Krishna said, "I know Duryodhana is not going to listen to me, but he says, I want the world to know that it was not the Pandavas who caused this war. The Pandavas did everything to avoid the war. It is the Kauravas who caused the war." And actually, when Duryodhana made this dialogue, I had not given enough land to put the tip of the needle through. And then he tried to arrest Krishna. So he might have thought that I am being so strong. Like from the perspective of optics, if somebody goes for peace and you reject by saying, I will not give him this much also, you try to arrest the peace messenger itself. For the world, it became black and white. Who is causing the war and who is trying to avoid the war. So that plan was successful. His plan to get peace was not successful, but his plan to protect the reputation of the Pandavas was successful. Nevertheless, Krishna's plan may be different from what we may think is his plan. So was Duryodhana's defying Krishna good? For good? Well, it was not good. If he could avoid it, the whole war could have been avoided. But ultimately, Krishna brought good out of it. Krishna ensured that eventually the rule of dharma was established in the world. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, last question. Yes.
You mentioned Bhagavad Gita one of the times the last actually is the bhakti and as an individual, as a devotee, we understand the bhakti. But what is our limitation in terms of dharma?
How much do we need to go in terms of dharma? Well, basically, whatever in our social situations, the basic principle of dharma. Okay, this could be a whole class, but I'll quickly explain this. Maybe I'll talk in a Sunday morning class. See, the basic principle of dharma is harmony. If basically the basic understanding in dharma is that we belong to units bigger than ourselves, and we take something from those units, therefore we have to give something to those units. It's like when we go on a road transport system. Now we are belonging to the whole transport system. So we are taking the facility from there. What do we have to give there? We have to follow the rules. We have to drive on the right side of the road. We have to stop when the signal comes. So whenever we belong to something bigger than ourselves, or whenever we take something from something bigger than ourselves, we also have to give. So dharma means this understanding that we all are belonging to many units bigger than ourselves. So for example, we belong to a family, we belong to a dynasty, we belong to a community, we belong to a country. Now, whichever units we belong to, if we are taking something from those units, we need to give something to those units. Now the idea is that all these units are contained in Krishna. And therefore, if we are serving Krishna, then we needn't serve all these units. That is true. But that generally, literally applies for those who have completely renounced the world and they're not taking anything from those units. But if we are not renounced the world, even as sannyasis or brahmacharis, we're still living in the world. We're living in a particular country. We're living in a particular community. So there is this principle of reciprocation is there. So generally as devotees, we should be law abiding. We should take care of our family responsibility. We follow the laws of the state that we are. If we're working in a company, we're taking salary, then we should be doing our job properly. So the basic principle of dharma is harmony. Harmony in this case means balancing. We take something from a unit, we give something to that unit. So as devotees, we should follow that. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.